A Chargers tight end leads the fantasy lineup so far in Week 6. We get you updated on all the injury news and dish you out a couple of recipes to keep your party full and satisfied. All this and more on the Fantasy Dopes podcast. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Fantasy Dope Podcast. We've got the dopest dope on fantasy football. Coming up on our Week 6 Spotlight show, Theo Riddick is out. So now, who do you start in the Lions' backfield? I have no idea. I'm completely confused. Plus, we'll go over some of the other questionable tags in the NFL, and there are a lot of them. And finally, we're going to each share some Sunday eats that will either impress your party or not impress your party. I'm not sure, but I'm interested to hear what Johnny's bringing to the table. Let's welcome him in, the house guru, the godfather of gurus, the godfather of all fantasy, John Fazio. John, what say you?
Wow, that's one hell of a title you got me there. That's some honor. I appreciate it.
It's big time. It's big, and it's definitely not it's not worthy. But go ahead.
Well, I would just want to say that my recipe is delicious. It's been proven many a times over the years, and I have always gotten positive reviews on it. So I think if you make it the way I do, you will be very impressed yourself, even if you don't spend time in the kitchen. So for you people that don't, get in there. There's some wild amount of food you can make football Sundays.
I was so interested as I started reading about the recipe that I forgot to even mention myself. You're the godfather. I'm the father figure, and I'm keeping the faith. I'm Michael Herbert. You are John Fazio, the head guru. And this is the Week 6 Spotlight podcast, is it not? Is that where we are here?
Yes, this is our Week 6 Spotlight show where we basically go over a couple of news injuries and updates from the past couple of days since we last recorded. And obviously, go follow our Twitter. It's at Fantasy Dopes, where you can find all the news and information, as well as checking out our website at www.fantasydopes.com. If you go over to our blog section, you'll be able to see our rankings and our quarterback rankings, as well as some other interesting tidbits, and obviously our listen tab, which we have our podcast information there. So all that good stuff. We're now on iTunes. There's a button for iTunes. And even if you look us up on TuneIn, which is a radio app, we're also listed there as well. So we're pretty much spreading around now. We're covering a lot of bases in the radio/podcast world. So if you're not on that shit, get on it, son.
Yeah.
And now, Herbie, so obviously we're missing one of our other people on the podcast, Miss Jillian Parker. Where is she?
Well, Jillian is on a road trip yet again. This time she's off to Detroit to find out what is going on with Theo Riddick and what is going on with the Lions backfield. I feel for her. If you recall earlier this week, she first off, she drafts Theo Riddick. She's a fan. She's into him. She got frustrated. She dropped him last week. What does he do? He goes off and scores a bundle of points and touchdowns, right? So what does she do? She goes and picks him up again. And then what happens? Theo gets hurt. Theo Riddick is out for Week 6 against the Rams. He's got a busted up ankle, and Jillian is she just doesn't know what to do. She gets in her car and she heads out to Detroit. So hopefully we'll hear from her soon. But before we get into that,
well, let me just stop you right there for 1 second.
Okay.
I don't think you know this. I actually texted Jillian, and she's actually not going to Detroit. So once again, you are lying. You are embedded in your thread of lies.
She told me she was going to Detroit. I don't know what to tell you. All I can do is, I think maybe we're being played by her. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, we'll have to have another production meeting behind the scenes and hammer out why people are missing podcasts and for what reason. But in any case, as you will go into the Thursday night game.
I have no comment on any of that. Let's just get to this Thursday night game, which was very interesting. John, what are your takeaways?
Yeah, so it wasn't a good night at all to have any Broncos in fantasy. Demaryius Thomas put up a disappointing night. Emmanuel Sanders wasn't involved too much. But let's get to the running back situation, because I think that was the biggest takeaway from the night. And it looks like it's going to be a full-blown running back committee between Devontae Booker and C.J. Anderson. Now, none of the coaches announced any of this, but I've just been playing fantasy for so long, seeing all these different running backs come up and down, and just seeing from what happened last night, I just feel like this is going to happen. Now, we actually forgot to mention Booker in our last podcast after we said we were going to talk about him, but pretty much what we said was we think he's going to be more involved, not as much as CJ, but he'll have a role certainly like he did last week, and that's exactly what played out. So the Chargers dominated first half, like they usually do at home, and that left few opportunities for the Broncos offense to get going. So, the line wasn't helping out CJ Anderson at all in the first half. Even in the second half, he couldn't really get anything going on the ground. But when they brought Booker in to start basically change pace in the backfield, he kind of started getting their offense going. And then when CJ Anderson saw that, and he came back in after a couple of like 8 or 9 yard rips from Booker, he kind of got a fire under his ass and he started running. So, I don't know, fans that saw him the whole night were definitely frustrated. He had a couple of penalties that pretty much broke down his fantasy day from a 25 to 30 point day to like finish like a 10 to 15. I believe he actually put up 7 points in standard and like 12 in PPR. But he had a penalty call on a touchdown that he caught for 20 yards that had to be called back. And he had a couple of other plays that were called back after he ripped up some big yards. So definitely a frustrating night for CJ. Now has finished under 50 yards for the fourth straight game. He only had 10 carries. And to make matters worse, Booker finished with 9 yards fewer than CJ on only 5 carries. So as we mentioned on the Twitter last night, I think it's time to panic if you're a CJ Anderson owner. I think if you have Booker available in the wire, you got to pick him up to try to back up CJ if you got him. But it's going to be a tough time dealing with starting both these guys moving forward until something drastic happens in their offense. What's your takeaway?
Yeah, I don't know. My takeaway is I'm glad I don't have either of them in my backfield to worry about because it just, I mean, C.J. Anderson has done it before. He's kind of an up and down guy, right? Booker, we know less on. We don't quite have the book on Booker. Stop it.
Nice,
But
nice.
if you're a C.J. Anderson fan, you wait around all game, and then he busts that one open, and he gets the touchdown, and they take it away, and your heart's ripped out, and you're like, God damn it! So I don't know what to do there. I leave that to you, but it's certainly not a good situation. And this vaunted defense, also, this is 2 weeks in a row now. I mean, the score was 21-13, but it was not nearly as close as it sounds, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was because Rivers is like the master of milking clock, especially when they're in San Diego. He's been known to do that ever since he's been with the team. And I think with CJ, if you have him, it wouldn't be a bad time to put him out in the trading block. You might not get the best offers for him right now, but I mean, if you're really frustrated, you don't want to deal with him, you can certainly listen to guys like maybe Quincy Enunwa or even John Brown. I know both those guys aren't going to have sexy games every week, but I mean, maybe they have more potential to get you more points, especially in PPR. So that's totally up to the owner. I mean, if Booker's on your waiver, and like I said, you can get him, then that's probably the best bet. But
Certainly.
if you don't, and somebody else has him, then I don't know. I would definitely consider benching him next weekend, and obviously try to consider trading him if I was an owner of him. So
I would, yeah. I mean, fair advice. He's one of those guys that I would stash if we can. If you can stash him because, again, Booker still does not have the body of work. Their quarterback situation. Remember, Simeon was out for a little while. For his first game back, again, how many starts has he had in the NFL? Paxton Lynch, 0 starts before last week. So there's a lot of inexperience here. So I would try to have some patience, stash him if you can, see what happens over the next week or two, and then maybe he's ready to take a bigger role. He's done it in the past. He did it in the I was going to say World Series. He did it in the Super Bowl. So I wouldn't give up on him too much.
no, that's definitely
Just
fair.
yet.
Yeah, I mean it's
You
definitely
know?
fair. I think if you're an owner, I think you have all these thoughts. So that's good that we kind of cover that whole thought philosophy with Anderson. Now, much to
That's
our
what we do here on the Fantasy Devs podcast, John.
yeah, we try to get both sides, and that's kind of like why we have you in here. You kind of bring the other side to this, so it's always good to cover both bases, like I always say. But much to our surprise, our boy tight end Hunter Henry finished with the best fantasy day out of anybody last night. Maybe excluding Josh Lambo, the kicker, if you had him for the Bolts. Didn't really see that one coming. But what about our boy Hunter Henry?
Well, as Jillian would say, Hunter Henry. She was saying it all day today on the cell phone on her way to Detroit. Finished the day with 6 catches, 8 targets, 83 yards, and again, second week in a row, a score. Now, if you watch the game, Phil Simms was literally fawning over him throughout the game, and Rivers did, he was going to him. I was looking for Gates the whole time, and it was the Hunter Henry show. So, and he led the team in targets and catches. He's the real deal, it looks like. And after watching that game last night, Hunter may have entered the top 10 as far as tight end options for fantasy after last night. And next week he's going up against a Falcon defense that allows a bunch of yards through the air. So I think now he's come to a point where you got to start him for sure. And my question to you before you go off is, what, as a Gates owner, what do I do? What's going on?
It's going to be weird. I mean, Gates has been all reliable his whole career. Now, all of a sudden, a rookie's kind of stealing his thunder away. But I think if you own both of these guys, it's going to be extremely difficult to predict. The thing I guess you're trying to bank on is that they start using a lot of 2 tight end offense in their playbook, like the Patriots do with Bennett and Gronkowski. But I think I feel more comfortable starting Hunter now because Gates, he was out for a couple weeks with injury. I'm pretty sure he's on his way out of retirement. I mean, he could play for another 5 years. Who knows? But you've got to think he's going to retire after this season. So maybe they're just kind of building up Henry so they can get used to the offense and make him a valuable piece for the future. So if he's not, if he's still available for some reason in your league, you got to pick him up for sure. But I think he's become a stronger option than Gates. And it's kind of weird to say that after only about 6 games in his rookie career. But you can't argue with how they're using him now. The coaches love him. Obviously, Sims loves him. He probably jacked off to him last night in the hotel room.
Jonathan.
But I mean, that's all I could say. I think he's great as a fantasy option.
I'm going to nickname him Handsome Hunter Henry.
That's all you, bruh.
Your thoughts?
I think it sounded like you wanted to join Sims there.
He's probably staying in a nice hotel room, so I'll go.
The best.
I'll steal some soaps, and we'll call it a victory.
Maybe he'll play with your ass a little bit too.
Jonathan, oh my God, we don't know. You'll have to check in for our Week 7 podcast to see where we go from here. But definitely something to tune into. Hunter Henry, definitely someone to keep your eye on. If you have Gates, I don't know yet. I'm going to formulate a game plan. We'll get back to you in Week 7. But let's go ahead and keep chugging along here. We'll take a short commercial break. I'm going to gather my thoughts, and we're going to promote ourselves. So go ahead, and we'll be right back with injury news. And there's a lot of it. There's a lot of updates, as per usual. So we'll be right back.
Want to know which fringe players you should start or sit in your fantasy leagues? Want up-to-the-minute news and analysis from the beat reporters around the league? Follow @FantasyDopes on Twitter to get your fix and fill the void of having to worry about which player will feast or famine.
All right, welcome back. Great stuff there. Just got a text message from Jillian. She is in Detroit and actually thinking about heading out west to San Diego to give Hunter a call. So stay tuned for that. But she is in Detroit, and she said that Theo Riddick is out for Week 6 against the Rams with that bad ankle. So, John, what do you got for us? What's your thoughts?
It also should be mentioned that Dwayne Washington has also been a little banged up, but he returned to a limited practice on Friday, and he's listed as questionable for now. So, like I said in the rankings podcast, it looks like Forsett is the next man up to start this game. I don't think they're going to use Washington fully. I mean, maybe he gets a start, but he only has like maybe 6 to 8 carries. Forsett may have about 12 to 14. So if you want to gamble a little bit, you feel unlucky. Forsett did it in Baltimore. I know you mentioned that you said he might not have much left in the tank, but maybe with a new team, a new change in scenery, he has something to prove and he can run all over this Rams defense. Now it's going to be tough, but at least they're in Detroit. So I say if you have him and you want to start him, you go do that. Will he have a great game? That remains to be seen. But if you want to take that shot, I like the opportunity.
Yeah, Forsett continues to be an interesting choice. Certainly, if he's available or if you picked him up, you got to give him a shot, and there's a chance. I just don't see him going off. He would not have been cut twice if he had, the potential to go off for the Ravens. So I don't see how he goes off here. You've got Ebron's already out. Golden Tate hasn't been the same. So I don't know. It's questionable, but if you got him, go for it and maybe get lucky. Maybe he scores. God bless.
Lions are definitely missing Joik Bell now. Now he's on the Bears.
Yeah.
They
Joik,
wish they had him back.
Joik. Yeah, they do.
So, the Joik store.
Let's go. Let's stay in that division and swing on over to Green Bay, shall we?
Go for it.
So, very interesting news here. A lot going on, a lot to digest. My main man, Cobb, who has been pretty bad this year, he's going to play for sure this week. He took a hard hit in the game last week and came out of the game. He was questionable for most of this week, but he has been removed from the injury report. He is a 100% go, and he is coming off, although he got injured at the end of the game, by far his most productive game of the week. So he's a go. He's not injured, and I expect to see big things from Cobb coming off of a big game for him. Now, the other thing that also you have to think about with Cobb is the running back game. The cheese in the Green Bay backfield may be getting very thick. Lacy is still a game time decision, still dealing with pain in the ankle. I think he suits up. I think he plays without a doubt. I'm also hearing Starks didn't practice all week. He had a death in the family. He's got knee issues. I think he's not going to start. So I think if you're a Lacy owner, you start him. You hope for the best. If you're a Cobb owner, you definitely start him. He's healthy. And Cobb, they're saying he's going to take snaps from running back. So I'm high on Cobb. I'm less high on Lacy, but I think he's going to start, and I'm not playing Starks. John, what do you got?
Well, I think if you're a Packers fan or a Lacy owner, you are praying tonight and you're praying Sunday that he suits up, because he doesn't have, or I should say the Packers don't have many options at running back. They've got John Crockett,
Crockett.
I honestly don't have any idea who that is. And they also have another running back, Jarrell Presley. So his picture actually on Google, it looks like he's on a practice squad. So I don't even know if
Elvis.
I know, no relation. There's 2 S's in his last name, so I don't even know if he's going to be on the team come Sunday. So I think if you're Lacy and you're McCarthy, I think you're going to him and saying, "Hey, man, we need you here. You got to chuck us out a little bit. Maybe we'll throw Cobb some plays at running back for a bit. I know he played quarterback and wide receiver at Kentucky. He can run the ball behind the backfield in the NFL. He's done that with the Packers.
Good
and he also,
stuff, John.
And he also runs as well in like some trickery plays with the Packers. I know they've done that in the past. So maybe they rely a little bit on Cobb as well at running back. You probably won't see that many snaps, but could happen for sure. I don't see why not. They got to get him going.
Yeah, listen, like I said, I'm in on Cobb. I'm not saying he's Terrell Pryor, but as far as the running game and running the Wildcat, but I think he's going to get some rushes. I think that he's going to have a good game. So, and certainly in a PPR league, you're playing Cobb without a doubt. So we got a lot of injuries to get to. I think the whole New England roster is questionable. So.
Well, that's because of Bill Belichick. Belichick has been known to put guys on questionable tags, even before there was probable tags last year. He's always been that guy to always screw the reporters and screw fantasy owners by putting everybody questionable, and then you have no idea who's starting until a couple hours before the game. So everyone's questionable on the Patriots offense. You got Edelman, Bennett, Blunt, and obviously Gronkowski, but all of them should be ready to roll. They were all pretty much limited, but there's no reason why they shouldn't start. So if you got all those Patriots guys, you fire them in your lineup with no hesitation.
Agreed. Agreed.
We also have Will Fuller. He had a bit of a hamstring issue. He was also listed as questionable. Now, like I said earlier in the podcast, it should be noted that because they got rid of the probable tag, everyone's now listed as questionable. So a lot of owners kind of tend to freak out when they see a questionable tag, but there's no reason to for some of these guys. Fuller's one of them. He's ready to roll. I expect a big game. He leads my fringe rankings in our list, so fire him up if you got him. Also got Des Bryant. Probably won't suit up. He was limited all week with that knee issue. I don't think he starts on Sunday, in my opinion. But once he comes back from that bye next week, I expect him to throw up the X plenty of times with Dak. So if he does miraculously start, though, and he's ready to rock and he says he's ready to go and he's feeling good, then I would play him in flex. Why not? He's got so much potential that he could suit, he can put up a monster game against the Packers in Lambeau. And obviously a couple of years ago, he has a little beef at that stadium if he caught that ball or not. But did he catch it?
I'm going to say yes. I like to
yes?
say yes on that.
I say nah, because I'm a Giants fan. So moving along, we got on the opposite side of that Bengals-Patriots game, Tyler Eifert, not a go. His back is all jacked up. And there's a chance he may miss more time, which kind of sucks because he was their red zone threat, and they haven't really cashed in on many opportunities in the red zone so far. So kind of stinks if you drafted Eifert. You're just kind of waiting and waiting, but we'll see what happens with him. T.Y. Hilton is another one of those guys that has that questionable tag, but he's going to be go. I think he'll be 100% against the Texans. He's probably been one of the most efficient fantasy players so far as a wide receiver. So you got him, you fire him up, and you hope for big things. Now, going to a couple of other interesting notes, we got Steve Smith. He's listed as doubtful. He's going to miss the game on Sunday against the Giants. He had a lot of potential. I know they have their new offensive coordinator, Marty Mornhinweg. He's going to be at his old stomping grounds in East Rutherford. And I think the Ravens' offense will be pretty much lighting it up against the Giants. So it kind of stinks that he's out. I think he would have had a lot of volume. But Mike Wallace is now the next man up. I think he's going to have a nice game. Obviously, Terrence West, like I mentioned earlier in the last week, or I should say this week, he's going to have a big game. So I think you fire both of those guys up with no problem. We also have Sammy Coates. He was he was nursing a cut finger, but he says he has no problems with it. He's ready to roll against Miami. And with Marcus Wheaton out of the game, I think he's also in line for another big day. So start him if you got him. Staying with the Steelers, this isn't injury related, but Antonio Brown is actually going to wear more customized cleats. And he's actually going to honor Jose Fernandez and Kimbo Slice. Those guys both recently tragically passed away, I should say. And it was nice for a visiting player to pay tribute to those two phenomenal athletes. May they rest in peace. And I know a lot of the Miami sports community was happy about that. Dee Gorder reached out to him and gave him praise. But Brown has to take off these cleats before all these games start. He just wears them in pregame. Otherwise, he'll get fined. He's actually racked up nearly $46,000 in fines so far this season. He doesn't care. He said, I pay my tolls, I pay my fines, I pay child support. I don't care. I'll pay. It doesn't matter to me. So he's got a lot of heart, and he's the number one fantasy option overall. So you got to start him no matter what, just in case you forgot about that.
I love what he's doing with the cleats. He was cleared to wear the Arnold Palmer ones, who had huge ties to Pittsburgh, is from Pittsburgh area, and he's carried it forward, and it's great. I'm a huge baseball fan. I know you are. Jose Fernandez, a huge tragic loss. Kimbo Slice, big in the MMA world. I think it's great. Anything that brings attention to some of these different things is wonderful. So I'm all for it, and God bless.
Yeah, well, let's mention this right now. I mean, we're not just a fantasy football podcast. I know baseball season in terms of fantasy is over, and I know we didn't really much talk about that, but expect to hear from us during fantasy baseball season. We're not just football. So more details will come out after the season's over, after the football season is over. We'll get more information out to you guys as we roll along with this. So just be prepared that we might have a couple of aces up our sleeve, pun intended.
I've got a lot up my sleeve.
Yes,
A lot of aces in my sleeves.
more than I do. But let's keep it going here. I know we got a long list.
Let's stay on the gridiron.
So here we go. Staying with the Miami game, Dolphins coach Adam Gase stated that Arian Foster is a game time decision. Now, it's obviously with his hamstring. He's always had issues in the pros with this injury. So, what do you think happens with Foster Sunday, being the big Dolphins fan that you are?
Another tough decision here. Another backfield that just doesn't have a clear vision as far as your fantasy starting lineup.
And especially going up against Pittsburgh, their offense, I think, is going to put up a lot of points. So that may just eliminate the running game completely from the Dolphins playbook, especially with this injury to Foster. So they'll probably limit him if he does go, and using Jay Ajayi maybe a little bit to just split carries to give some rest to Foster. I think they're a backfield that can safely avoid, along with this next team I'm actually about to mention, the New York Football Giants, and with Rashad Jennings. He had said in an interview that he fully intends to play with that thumb injury he's been nursing, but I think he's also going to be a game time decision. And if he does suit up, I don't think, again, he's going to put up much production, or any of the Giants running backs for that fact. Baltimore has the best rushing defense against any teams this season. So I think both of those offenses are just a situation to avoid if you have their running backs. Don't play them. I don't expect many points coming from both of those guys.
I will say this, the Dolphins thing, and nothing to do with being a fan. It's interesting only because Foster definitely runs routes out of the backfield. So if he can actually perform, even if they're getting blown out, they're going to be passing the ball. They're going to be dumping it off to him. So if he can actually play and sustain a couple of quarters of play, he could have some points in a PPR league for sure. And on the same token, if they're getting blown out, you might say, you know what? Let's hold them back a little bit. Let's see what Jay can do, and give Foster another week. So, maybe Jay gets those passes and touches. I don't know. That's a difficult situation. I don't think the Giants are getting blown out. I think it's going to be a closer game, but again, depending on the situation, it's very tricky. So, if you got it back against the wall, you give Jennings the start and you roll the dice. He could come up snake eyes. I don't know.
It's definitely a headache of a situation. So I just feel like I'd rather avoid that than
avoid it if you can.
Yeah, than just sit there and watch every play and just yell at the TV constantly. I mean, I think just less stress for you to just bench those guys, wait another week, see what happens the following week. More to that later. Let's get on to Latavius Murray, who is not a game time decision. He is once again out week 6 against the Chiefs. So it looks like DeAndre Washington and Jalen Rashad, their backups, will be evenly splitting carries again the same way they did last week. So I started Washington in one league last week, put up a decent game. I mean, if you want to take some chances, you could start either or. I think they're a coin flip. If you're feeling lucky, just take a coin, heads for Washington, tails for Rashad. Whatever it lands on, that's the guy you start with. I think that's my theory on those guys. Okay. And some non-injury related news. There's something very big to talk about, though. Jaguars offensive coordinator Greg Olson came out Friday and said that TJ Yeldon is going to be their feature back. Now, they came off the bye. Yeldon had a good game in London against the Colts. But I'm a little surprised only because they signed Chris Ivory to a contract earlier in the summer. And now they're saying that he's not going to be used that much. I think that's a little confusing to me. What do you think?
Again, another thick, cheesy, goopy situation in a NFL backfield. I say if you have TJ, you start him this week, and you hope that that he's the featured guy. If you have Ivory, I would stash him. I kind of put him in the same category with C.J. Anderson. I would stash him if you can, because Jaguars, I don't want to call them a second half team, but Ivory's a beast, and as the general average defense wears down week after week, I feel like Ivory is going to have uh, opportunities to bull rush these guys and put points on the board. They have an offense, they have receivers, they have a great quarterback. I think he's going to have some breakout games. So I'm not ready to give up on Ivory. If you can stash him, stash him. If you have Yeldon, start him. I also just want to quickly jump back to the Chiefs and someone we talked about briefly in the podcast as well. Um, the Chiefs offensive coordinator, Childress, said that they're going to sprinkle in Jamal Charles. So say, do what you will with that. If you have him again, I think you got to start him. But he practiced in full this week, so that's good. So the training wheels are off. I think if you have him, you got to start him. Just wanted to pop that in again.
Yeah, I just feel like, again, he needs more time to heal. That's a difficult injury, especially you're suffering it more than once. I think they're going to ease him back a couple of weeks. So I wouldn't start Spencer Ware over him, but if I have other running back options, I would definitely consider benching him for sure. I don't think he'll put up too many points. He might give you an average day at best. I think that's his best day. He gets like an average day. Whereas you can probably roll the dice on somebody else and get a bigger day. But
Like
that's up
who?
to the
Give,
owner.
give me, give me a guy or two that you would start over Charles that aren't obvious choices.
Perfect. Go to www.fantasydopes.com/blog and check out our rankings list in full, and you'll see exactly who I talk about.
So tricky, Johnny.
You set me up. I had to spike it on you.
All right.
Uh,
Oh,
but but for Yeldon, it's I don't know. It's a weird situation because why does the offensive coordinator have to go out and say, "Hey, yeah, this guy's our starting back. We got trust in him." That just doesn't sound right. Like if he was, he would have just wouldn't have said anything.
well,
I think this is more of like a confidence check with him. Like, hey, you're doing well so far. Ivory's back from his injury. We're not necessarily going to throw him in there with you, but get your ass going because we want you to perform. And if you don't, you're going to get yanked. So I think he has a bit of a short leash, in my opinion.
I agree with you. I think what Olson is saying here is basically he's trying to, on one hand, he's making a comment that on one hand gives Yeldon the confidence to go out there and try to do his best, which would be best for the Jaguars. On the other hand, he's trying to motivate Ivory by saying, Yeldon's our guy. Yes, Ivory has a contract and all, but Yeldon's our guy. So what's that going to do? It's going to piss off Ivory and make him work harder, get his shit together, and come out and ball. So I think you kind of accomplish two goals with that comment. That's my guess. I'm going psychological with the coordinator there.
That's totally understandable, and I respect that 100%.
All right. Well, listen. Do you have anything else you want to talk about before we get to the foodie portion of this podcast?
Let's serve
Anything
it up. Serve it up hot.
you ready? You
I'm
ready?
ready. Yeah, I'm ready for it.
All right. So we've got a lot of this injury nonsense out of the way. Let's talk about really my favorite part of Sunday football is eating. I love to eat and I love delicious different things. Johnny, what do you got for us this week?
So I actually been rocking with this chicken dip. It's a buffalo chicken dip provided by Frank's Red Hot. I don't want to name drop any of the products here. We don't have any product placement in this podcast just yet. But Frank's Red Hot original cayenne pepper sauce or the one that I use, the buffalo wing sauce, which is delish, is the one I use for this recipe. So it's basically just 2 cups shredded chicken. You got to bake that puppy in the oven. Preheat the oven to about 375. Cook it for about 15 to 20. Take it out, chop it up, shred it up, add some cream cheese. It's usually 1 package. Soften it up, spread it on that bottom glass pan. Then we also add the sauce, the buffalo wing sauce. It says a half cup. I usually go a little bolder than that. I throw about 3/4 of a cup. I like my flavor, So
All right.
you gotta spread that stuff around. I also add in about half to 3/4 cups of the ranch dressing. Spices it up a bit, puts a nice touch to it. And then afterwards, throw some cheese right on the top. Then I throw in some more sauce and some more ranch dressing. Put that puppy in the oven for about 20 more minutes. And then stir that bitch up and serve it.
So I mean, it sounds more of like a goulash than a dip. Like, are you taking a chip and dipping it in?
I
Is that what
am.
you're doing?
I
Okay.
do. I use
So
the
it's like a
toast.
queso because I was thrown off by adding the chicken in. So it's like a queso-y, a buffalo queso, if you will, with chicken already in, and you're using a chip to dip.
Exactly. You can use chips, you can use carrots or celery. It's up to the person. You want to throw crackers in there, you can throw some crackers, but I usually go with like a Tostitos scoops. That way it gets into the scoop, you got all the goopiness in there, and you just throw it right into your mouth and just devour.
It's interesting, and I definitely want to try it. Can I substitute the ranch for blue cheese? Because I'm not a big ranch guy.
You certainly can. This is the thing about cooking and with recipes. You don't have to stick to every little detail. You got something that you want to throw in that you like better? That's of course, that's fine. That'll work. I mean, don't throw like peanut butter in this. That would be kind of weird, but blue cheese for sure works. You can also throw in crumbled blue cheese if you want as well. You can have a little bit of both worlds. Ranch dressing, blue cheese crumbles. Boom.
Johnny, I'm gonna. You just teased next week's segment on this with peanut butter. So, folks, next week on our Spotlight show, remind me peanut butter. We'll come back to it. For my dish, I'm going to be going with a corn chowder this weekend. I have a bunch of stuff to do Sunday, so what's going to happen is I'm going to get up super early, which is going to be challenging at best. I'm going to get up super early. I'm going to dump my ingredients into the slow cooker, which is man's best friend, and I'm going to walk away. I'm going to bang out the errands, and then I'm going to come back, and hoping by 1 o'clock, maybe by halftime in the 1 o'clock game, the corn chowder is ready. Basically, you're gonna get your mirepoix in there, carrots, onions, some celery. You can lose the celery if you want. Potatoes, diced, chopped up. Throw that all in there. A bunch of corn, however you want to do it. I like to barbecue some corn. I cut all those kernels off and I dump them in. I'll take creamed corn in the canned version. I'll throw that in. A little chicken broth, a bunch of spices and herbs, and I let that stew in that slow cooker, and I make it happen. I come back, and it's beautiful. So
It's funny that you mentioned slow cooker because I don't actually have one, and I kind of want one now that
you
you're
need
talking
one.
about this.
You need one.
That
You need one.
that might be making an appearance on the parents' Christmas list, if you will. I think that's a great request, and I'm actually going to type that right now. So this is very informative. I enjoy listening to that. I think that's an excellent dish. I wish you can serve me that as well. We should do like a little exchange, if you will.
We could do that. And a quick note here because it's not a cooking show. That's on our other network. But uh, so what you can do is with the bacon. This calls for a lot of bacon. If you like bacon, that's great. But if you're cooking that bacon in the slow cooker all day long, it's not crunchy. It's not soft. It's soft. So what I do like to do is I will cook some bacon. I'll overcook it so it's nice, hard, and crunchy. And when I serve the soup, I will crumble a little of that on top as almost as a garnish with a pinch of shredded cheddar.
Right on. I'm actually a bacon. I don't want to say connoisseur, but I'm a crispy bacon fan. I don't like the soft bacon. It just doesn't appeal to me. I just like when it's really cooked and crispy.
You like it hard. I get
Yes,
it. I
yeah,
get it.
it's great. It's my favorite. So I sounds like I can enjoy that. Maybe we should have like a little Sunday meet together with all of us.
We
And
could we could do that. If Jillian ever found, we'll have to do that, and maybe we'll get one of them fancy video cameras.
possibly for sure. Alrighty, I think just about does it for this episode. You want to take us out?
All right, friends. The gurus have spoken. We'll continue to update the list. As we said, fantasydopes.com. Any further injury news, pertinent information we will put on there as it comes available over the weekend. Follow us on Twitter as always, fantasydopes at fantasydopes.com. And that's all I got for right now. Until next time, handle your business, brush your teeth, get your fantasy freak on. Johnny, take us out of here.
I'll just say good luck to all you dope heads this weekend. Follow the Twitter like Herbert said for more updates and advice. And that is all. We out. Cheer!
Cha-cha!
Ta-ta!